World as you know it ended while you were sleeping. A single engine failure, or perhaps a lucky shot from an aging air defense system has triggered a countdown that cannot be stopped. We're looking at a 48-hour window before the hell promised by Oval Office by Trump becomes a kinetic reality. This isn't just about a down jet, it is about the moment the mask of global stability finally cracked. I'm here to show you the side of the news they're too afraid to discuss in this mainstream media. I'm Blondie Ware, and now we are diving into the terrifying insights of a world preparing for a strategic shift. If you want to understand the mechanics of the coming escalation before it reaches your doorstep, subscribe and hit the like button. In times of chaos, information is the only hard currency left. The silence of the Iranian highlands is something most Westerns will never experience, and frankly, you don't want to. But for one American colonel, that silence became his entire world for 48 agonizing hours. Think about the contrast. One moment you're in the most sophisticated cockpit on the planet, surrounded by digital displays and the roar of two Pratt & Whitney engines. The next, you are hanging from a parachute in the freezing darkness, listening to the distant sound of Iranian internal security. Patrols starting their engines. The loss of an F-15E is a strategic disaster, but the loss of its pilot is geopolitical nightmare. We aren't talking about a rookie here, we're talking about a seasoned officer with decades of sensitive data in his head. When the jet went down near the Iranian mountains, the clock didn't just start ticking, it exploded. The pilot hit the ground with nothing but his survival vest and a Stardom issue pistol. No satellite phone that worked under the heavy canopy, no immediate extraction, and a landscape that looks like the surface of the moon. The Iranian response was surgical and immediate. Within minutes of the transponder going dark, local system units were deployed. They weren't just looking, they were hunting a trophy. Imagine the leverage of having a high-ranking U.S. officer and a televised cell in Tehran right now. It would change the entire calculus of the 84-hour ultimatum, but the pilot was graduate of series program: survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. He knew that his only hope was to stay mobile, stay high, and stay invisible. For 2 days, he played a deadly game of cat and mouse in the ravines. He traveled only at night, using the jagged rocks to mask his head signature from overhead drones. He wasn't just running, he was navigating toward a pre-designated safe area that had been established years ago, and for just such a catastrophe, his only defense was a handgun and the shadows. If he had used that weapon, it would have been a signal for his own demise. In the world of high-stakes invasion, a short fire is a location revealed. While he was moving through the brush, the Pentagon was losing its mind. This wasn't just a search and rescue mission, it was a full-scale covert penetration of sovereign airspace. They had to coordinate with assets on the ground that officially do not exist. We're talking about CIA-linked unconventional assistance requiring Teams moving across the border from Iraq under the cover of sandstorm sent teachers outside the border ready to turn the entire mountainside in a graveyard if the pilot was comet. The extraction itself was a masterpiece of kinetic desperation. Especially teams like SEAL, Team 6 or Delta operators had to fast rope into a canyon that was being actively searched by Iranian militarists. There was a moment of contract, a brief, violent exchange that the official reports will call a kinetic event to avoid using the word skirmish. The pilot was pulled into a modified MH-47 Chinook just as Iranian quick reaction forces arrived at the scene. They left behind a lot of unanswered questions. This incident proves that despite our obsession with stealth and cyber warfare, the most critical element remains the human one. $100 million jet was neutralized by all defense systems, but a single man with a pistol, a will to survive, managed to keep the spark of a global conflict from turning into a nuclear bonfire. For now, because while he was being flown to safety, the orders for the hell on earth response were already being typed out the Washington. The pilot survived, but the piece didn't. 84-hour clock is the most terrifying weapon in the American arsenal. It is not just a deadline, it is psychological siege. When Trump promised the hell would descend on Iran within 2 days, he wasn't just talking to the regime in Tehran. He was talking to the global markets, the energy sector, and even military command center from Moscow to Beijing. This is the geometry of a high-stakes gamble. You set a timer and you wait for the opponent's nerves to shatter. We're looking at the strategic deployment of 3 carrier strike groups moving into striking distance of the Iranian coastline. This is a massive concentration of firepower that hasn't been seen in the region for decades. The primary objective is not just retaliation for the downed F-15. It is the total neutralization of Iran's ability to close the Strait of Hormuz. If the waterway is blocked, the global economy faces a cardiac arrest. The Pentagon has already leaked a list of high-value targets, and it's a blueprint for a humanitarian crisis. The targets are not just military-based, they're lifeblood on the nation's infrastructure. Desalination plants, power grids, oil terminals like Hark Island are already programmed into guidance system of hundreds of cruise missiles. This is what a strategic shift looks like in the 21st century. You do not invade, you remove the nation's industrial capacity from the map in a single weekend. The 48-hour window is designed to give the leadership a chance to surrender or face kinetic effect that reset their development for 50 years, while the diplomats are frantically dialing numbers that no one is picking up. The tactical reality is set. The Beech's Spirit bombers have already departed from Wyman Air Force Base. They are ghost ships in the sky carrying the heavy ordnance designed to penetrate deep bunkers where the Iranian leadership is currently hiding. This is the moment of maximum tension where a single misunderstood signal or a nervous radar operator could pull the trigger on a global catastrophe. While the fire burns in the Middle East, a cold wind is blowing through the heart of Europe, Germany. Germany has just passed the Military Service Modernization Act, and it is tectonic shift for civil liberties. If you're a man between the ages of 17 and 45, the state has effectively put a digital leash on you. The new law requires you to obtain explicit permission from the Bundeswehr if you plan to leave the country for more than 90 days. Call it administrative update, but if you know the terminology of rights violation when we see it, this is a soft launch of a mobilization infrastructure. By tracking every man of fighting age, the German government is preparing for a scenario they aren't willing to name out loud yet. Think about the implications for students studying abroad, for professionals on long-term contract, or for digital nomads. Suddenly, your freedom of movement is a matter of national defense. The borders are not closed yet, but they are closed with a database. Why now? Why Germany? Because Berlin knows that if the situation in Iran, in Ukraine, escalates into a regional conflict, the NATO alliance will be tested like never before. The logistical reality of geopolitical clash requires a steady supply of hardware and, more importantly, human assets. By tethering its male population to the soil, Germany is sending a signal to its allies: we are ready for the high-stakes gamble. If you think this is only about Germany, you are missing the bigger picture. This is a pilot program for the rest of the European Union. We're seeing the end of the post-Cold War era of borderless travel. The administrative grid is being tightened, and the population is being inventoried. This is what happens when peace dividend runs out. The state remembers that it owns your body in a time of crisis. In the middle of this geopolitical storm, we have the bizarre spectacle of Kanye West in London. It might seem like a distraction, but it is a perfect mirror of our fractured reality. When the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom has addressed a rapper's performance at the Wireless Festival, you know, the old world's immune system is failing. Pepsi has already pulled its sponsorship, fleeing from the radical rhetoric that continues to broadcast. This is the collapse of the corporate illusion of the neutrality. The Mayor of London and the central government are now openly discussing entry bans for global icons. Think about that. In a supposedly free society, an artist is being treated as a strategic threat because of his influence on the narrative. It is not about the music anymore. It is about the fact that institutions can no longer control the chaos. When the border between pop culture and political censorship dissolves, the liberal era is officially over. We are seeing a world where every pillar of stability is noting simultaneously. The military is on high alert, the borders are closing for citizens, and the cultural icons are being neutralized by the state. Kanye West is just most visible symptom of a society that has its center. The withdrawal massive corporate funding from cultural events is a sign that safe world of the last 30 years is being replaced by a world of radical alignments. You are either with the system or you are removed from the map. The lines are being drawn from the mountains of Iran to departure gates in Frankfurt. We are living through an 84-hour countdown that might never actually end. Is this the build-up to a global strategy or a calculated escalation to force a new world order? I want to hear it from you in comments. Do you feel the greed tightening around you? Are you prepared for what happens when the timer hits 0? Subscribe if you want to stay ahead of the curve. Stay vigilant. The truth is hidden from noise, and I'll be here to help you find it. I'm Blondie Warrior. Thanks for watching the video, and goodbye for now.